Well, good morning. Welcome into another edition of Scoreboard Saturday on News Radio KMAN. I am your host, AJ Shaw. We'll be joined by a couple of coaches later on in the program live, which is a rarity because typically we record these interviews the day or the night before after their games. But it's great to be back in this chair again on KMAN. Kaylie Ines, the girls basketball coach with Blue Valley Randolph, will join us in the third segment. And then Bryan Ebert, the girls basketball coach at Frankfort High School, will join us in the final segment. And of course, Coach Ebert just recently was given a national distinction for an award he received for Frankfort's success last season when they won the state title. So we'll talk with Coach Ebert in the final segment of the program. But first, Mitch Fortner had an opportunity to speak with both Manhattan coaches. The Manhattan High game last night against Topeka High was postponed. First, Benji George and then Scott Mall. Benji George's team was supposed to play last night. That game got postponed. So here's that conversation for you. Mitch Fortner discussing the recent games and what's ahead for Manhattan High as they'll be playing Junction City next Tuesday.
Mitch Fortner joined by Manhattan boys head coach Benji George on Scoreboard Saturday. Last night, the Manhattan girls and boys don't end up playing basketball for the first time in the second semester. It gets snowed out. They were set to face the Topeka High Trojans. Coach, I'm sure it's always a bummer to prep for the game, practice with the guys after a few days off because of the snow days, and then you get to game day and you're not playing. I'm sure that's a tough one once in a while to get all that prep in and you don't end up playing.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, meeting with the guys at practice, everybody's ready to play a game again, and we need a game. I mean, it's been since December 20th, and regardless of whether we've had some practices canceled, we need a game at every level of our program. And I was really impressed and proud of our guys of how engaged we were in that practice because, it's hard to get together and the hype of there's supposed to have been a game and have it been homecoming and all that and the beginning of Centennial League play and all throughout break, we've been reminding them of those things. And then to have to push that back a little while was tough, but we got after it in practice and basically played a game in practice. We did 4 quarters and kept score and was just everybody was super engaged and was competitive, and I'm proud of how our guys handled it.
This season, you told me when we were heading into that first game in Hayes that really varsity-wise, you're going to only really be 9 deep. I'd like to just kind of look back and get your thoughts on just the challenge that you felt like it was of just being limited with a varsity roster. You're going to play everybody a considerable amount of minutes, and just how you feel like that's blossomed, how you've been able to overcome a few things to get to a couple of wins with just 9 guys playing a lot of minutes.
Yeah, some guys have really stepped up and impressed us. I really like where we're at, from a rotation standpoint. It was a process figuring all that out with, effectively, a whole new group, basically. But guys like what Will Carpenter's done, he's really forced our hand in putting him on the floor. He's impressed us. Henry does everything the right way in practice, and he's a guy we want on the floor a lot. So, I look at it right now like I really could stretch. So I think our bench can continue to become a weapon for us. As the season wears on, you see a lot of teams really only play 7 guys, sometimes 8, and I'm super comfortable with the 9 we have. And then guys like Asher Newton and Easton Duff have really almost forced our hand in terms of how they've performed and produced, and making us as a staff have those conversations and just show me and I'll play you, and they're showing us day to day too, and so I like where we're in depth standpoint.
Coming into the season, you knew that Landon Knopp was going to be one of your key guys, and he's now on this season at about 13 points per game. He has been consistently scoring in double figures. As a matter of fact, went back and looked at some of the old box scores from this season. 14 times he scored exactly 15 points. That's a pretty good spot to be consistent. He is a senior that's he's somebody that's been starting for you as a sophomore. Love to know, with his growth this year, where you've really seen him grow, maybe not just on the floor, but as a leader and being maybe a locker room leader.
Yeah, I appreciate that question so much, because something I wanted to make sure I mentioned was just how much growth he's shown in the intangibles. It's a hard situation to be in with only having 2 seniors, and it's just the ebbs and flows of a roster. And Landon and Sam both have handled the leadership responsibilities so well, and that's nothing against any former leaders we've had, but Landon and Sam both have really embraced it. They've showed incredible growth, and they're so engaged. Landon has been so engaged every time the coaches speak, and he has stepped up and spoken in the locker room. And I caught him in a moment after the elation of the Hayes win, and just told him I was really happy for Sam and Landon that we had that moment, because they deserved it as leaders in the way they've embraced just trying to pull everybody along, and it gets lonely at times. And I'm really glad that they got some positive feedback for what they've done as leaders, because it's not something we want to overlook. And then Landon he's been a consistent performer for us from an efficiency standpoint, and he's probably our highest volume shooter, but he's been efficient with it. Just really happy with where he's at. Moving from last year to this year.
Speaking with Manhattan boys head coach Benji George on Scoreboard Saturday, got a couple more for you, Coach. So like I mentioned yesterday, you were supposed to play Topeka High, and you talked about the excitement with the practice leading up to what was supposed to be last night's game. Was there anything in particular that you guys practiced that you're really looking forward to seeing how well it was executed against a team like Topeka High?
Yeah, we anticipated that they were going to be the first team that probably played us majority zone, at least from what we'd seen on film. And so, we had a chance, even though we lost some snow day practices, we had a chance to prepare for seeing some zone. And I think it was something, we probably needed, and that was good for us. Just defensively playing a little bit more man, and how we're going to guard things like ball screens and something they do a little bit more continuity with, and some of their circle motion stuff. So, and I told our guys with, things like the side ball screens and all that, it's not necessarily about beating Topeka High. It's just things we need to get better. So it was good to have that chance. Just obviously needed game reps that are important too, and haven't had a chance to get that yet.
So to wrap up here, Coach, now that you don't play Topeka High, the game gets postponed. That'll be made up at a later time. Now the mode quickly changes to Junction's big rivalry. You host them for the first game, and that's going to be coming up on Tuesday. I know it's maybe very early in the prep, but do you have any thoughts about what Tuesday's game might be like?
Yeah, I think that was a lot of, the sense of urgency we were able to have in practice with the Topeka High game being canceled is your mind immediately switches to Junction, and our players are well aware. I think there's been nights where we've played and the Junction City players have been in the stands, and there was a night where they played and our players went over and watched. So programs are going to be ready for it, like we always are. It's a tremendous opportunity. We've already talked about it. Just when you have your rival, but also an undefeated and state-ranked team coming into your place, there's no better opportunity. We kind of feel like it's a no-lose situation for us, and it's exciting for the players. I mean, you only get one shot to do this, and I think it's really helped to bring us a sense of urgency and engagement from our players, and we look forward to the challenge.
Well, hopefully no more nasty weather this year. We get the rest of the season off without any issues, and really appreciate your time, Coach. We'll be talking to you soon.
All right, thank you.
Excuse me, head coach Benji George. Forgot to turn my mic on there. Head coach Benji George, the boys basketball coach for Manhattan High. Again, Junction City, they will be playing them on Tuesday night. Cole Dutchendorf will have the call for you. Mitch going to be over at K-State, of course, for PA. So Cole calling his first game on his own for Manhattan High Hoops as the Indians playing the Blue Jays. And our last show before the Christmas holiday, we talked to Nick Perez, and we talked a little bit about that game and just the intensity of that rivalry. And it feels like every year when Junction comes to Manhattan, Tribe gets it done in their gym. Manhattan goes to Junction City, and Junction City gets it done in their gym. Maybe that changes this year. Maybe one team sweeps. Who knows? But it's always a very intense rivalry. Even with a number of the postponements last night, several teams still were able to get their games in, including Riley County girls and boys. Riley County girls off to a very nice start. Kelsey Nelson's team goes into Jeff West last night and gets a 52-21 victory. Valley Heights boys falling on the road to Doniphan West, 53-49 last evening. St. Mary's and Sabetha boys basketball, the Bears taking down the Blue Jays, 65-58. Hiawatha boys getting the 2-point win over Rossville, 57-55. Washburn Rural boys, Centennial League action. Little inter-city rivalry there with Topeka Hayden, and the Junior Blues getting the victory in Centennial League play over Hayden, 67-54. Riley County boys winning a tight one over Jeff West, 63-59. Other games going on, Nemaha Central and Perry LeCompton. The Cause falling by 25 to the Thunder on the road. Final score in that one, Nemaha Central 49, Perry LeCompton 24. In overtime, Clifton Clyde defeating Frankfort last evening, 54-49 in the boys' game. Other games that went on last night, Centralia boys blow out Wash County, 84-35. The Tigers get absolutely trounced last evening. Marysville falling to Clay Center last night by a final of 68-50 in an NCKL play. The Tigers picking up the win. Axtell boys picking up a blowout victory over Lynn, 64-42. Doniphan West girls, they get the 13-point win over Valley Heights girls, 51-38. St. Mary's girls defeating Sabetha by 31, 50-19. Good ball game between Hiawatha girls and Rossville girls. The Red Hawks pick up the win, 70-62. Meanwhile, Lady Tigers, Clay Center, defeats Marysville, 57-44. So both Tiger teams getting the win. Great girls basketball game last night between the Junior Blues and the Wildcats, Washburn Rural and Topeka Hayden. And the Wildcats come away with the 46-44 win. Other games that went on, Nemaha Central girls 58-21, defeating Perry LeCompton. Clifton Clyde girls defeat Frankfort 49-38. Of course, we mentioned we'll talk to Bryan Ebert, the head coach for Frankfort girls basketball, here in just a moment. Centralia taking on Washington County, 61-34, the final score in that one. And then Axtell girls falling on the road to Lynn, 49-39. Number of games then, of course, postponed last night because of the crazy weather that we've had across the area over the last few days. So definitely something to keep an eye on. When we come back, we'll hear from Scott Mall, girls basketball coach with Manhattan High. Mitch had the opportunity to speak with him last night as well. Of course, don't forget, we'll also have Kaylie Ines on in the third segment, Blue Valley Randolph girls basketball coach, and then Bryan Ebert, the Frankfort girls basketball coach, in our final segment. Scoreboard Saturday, brought to you by WTC Communications, continues after these words. We continue here on Scoreboard Saturday, News Radio KMAN. Busy sports day ahead for you. Of course, our show brought to you by the great folks at WTC Communications. WTC, keeping you connected with the fastest fiber network, internet speeds. Get your home or business in the game online at WTCKS.com. That's WTCKS.com. I mentioned busy sports day here for you on K-Man. Coming up at 4 o'clock today, K-State men's basketball, home against the Cougs of Houston, the Cougars. That will get us underway at 4 p.m. with pregame coverage. Wyatt Thompson, Stan Weber on the call for you. Tip at 5. We'll also have it on our sister station, the station right next to my left, 101.5 K-Rock. Half an hour after the boys' pregame starts at 4:30. Girls basketball on the road in Provo at BYU. Pregame coverage starts out there. 4:30 pregame with a 5 o'clock tip. That's on our other sister station, Sunny 102.5. So busy sports day across all of our Manhattan broadcasting stations for you. And then we'll be joining in progress with one of the wild card games. There are so many games going on today, I need to look up what that game is. Give me 1 second. Steelers-Ravens. Okay, we'll be joining the Steelers-Ravens game in progress, which should be a pretty good game. And, a lot of great games on the docket this weekend. Chargers and Texans getting us kicked off. We will not have that game, by the way. for you because of the K-State games. But Chargers-Texans, that'll be the first playoff game today. Tomorrow, we'll have 3 wild card games. Broncos-Bills at noon, Packers-Eagles at 3:30, Commanders-Bucks at 7, and then on Monday, Vikings and Rams in Glendale, Arizona. And we'll have all 3 wild card playoff games for you tomorrow. The Bills-Broncos game, the Packers-Eagles game, and the Commanders-Bucks game from West 1-1 for you. The Rams-Vikings game moved to Glendale, Arizona because of those just terrible wildfires that have been happening in Southern California, primarily in the Los Angeles area. Thousands displaced, and of course we all send our thoughts and prayers to the great folks out in Los Angeles who are dealing with these horrible wildfires that have been going on for days, and the fire department down there trying everything they can, but it's very hard to contain these fires because of the high winds that have exceeded 100 miles an hour down there. So obviously we send our thoughts to the fine folks in L.A. as many people have been displaced from their homes. Hold on one second. Displaced from their homes from the devastating fires down there. We had an opportunity, Mitch Fortner did, to talk with girls basketball coach Scott Mall, longtime head coach at Manhattan High, going back many years, long before I was born. And that's incredible. Coach Mall has continuously had great success over there at Manhattan High, and Mitch had the opportunity to speak with him last evening.
Mitch Fortner with Manhattan Girls head coach Scott Mall on Scoreboard Saturday. The Manhattan Girls 4-2 on this season. Was supposed to play last night, but snowed out was the matchup against Topeka High. That'll be made up at a later date. Coach, appreciate your time here on Scoreboard Saturday. It's been a tough week on everybody with the snow, the record-breaking snowfall last weekend. We got a little bit more snow on Thursday, so a lot of hurdles probably just to get on the practice floor. Did you have much time with your team this week to prepare for Topeka High?
Definitely not much time this week. It seemed like we had a lot over break, maybe more days than usual. So that was good. But then, this last week, we weren't able to practice Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. We did practice Thursday, and, that was going to be short notice to get ready for Topeka High last night. But we really needed to play a game after all that time, and especially it was a challenging game because Topeka High is playing really well right now. So we really were looking forward to getting on the court and kind of, figuring some things out, but using some things we'd worked on.
Well, your team is 4-2 to open up the year, and I've been at every game, and I feel like every time I watch your team play, I'm learning a little bit more about what this team can do. Maybe not so much as a team, maybe even individually, how they're growing as players just early on in the season. But I want to talk about individual players and start with Delaney Larson, your 5'6" junior who's averaging 12 points per game, coming off a 12-point game against Hayes before the end of the first semester. This is a team that returned a lot of players, and Delaney Larson's been playing since she was an underclassman. How do you feel like she's been growing now as an upperclassman, playing at the varsity level with a ton of experience under her belt?
Yeah, she's really been doing a lot of good things. She really plays with a lot of confidence. She's really stepped up as a leader for us on the court. Offensively, she just does a lot of things well. She could shoot the ball. She's really gotten good at driving to the basket and making kind of, not layups, but the kind of little 8-foot runners, kind of a scoop shot. She's got really good. It's a tough shot, but she's got really good at putting those in. But she really gives us a threat there. She seems to make a big play at a big time. She gets some steals for us, but really been important for us on the court.
The other player individually I wanted to ask about is 5'7" sophomore Bailey Bush. For those that don't know, she's a heck of a volleyball player, an all-league volleyball player. Her mom is a K-State volleyball Hall of Famer, and Liz Wagner Bush. When I watch her play, I feel like she just oozes potential. She's continuing to grow, and she could be a really fun athlete as she continues to gain that confidence and play more games. But talent-wise, what excites you about the future of Bailey Bush?
Well, she's really physical, which is most of the time a good thing. She's physical offensively. She can get to the basket. She can make good plays in the air. Defensively, she does some good things for us. Where it hurts her physically is she's been getting in some foul trouble because she's very aggressive. But, she's shot the ball really well, better than last year. That's an improvement. She hit 2 big threes for us against Hayes, which really got us right back into things there and kept that a tight game, which were big at the time. Unfortunately, she always also had 4 fouls, so that really hurt because she didn't get to play as many minutes as we would have liked her to. And then, they kind of took advantage of her late because they knew that she had to avoid fouling, so they kind of went right after her, which was smart on their part. But, yeah, she's really made some big plays for us. She's, just a really talented athlete, really good girl, works really hard all the time.
It's been over 3 weeks now since you guys have played a basketball game, and you mentioned that last game. It was a loss to Hayes where the Indians just had a little bit of a better fourth quarter than your team. Hayes is a really good team. They're state-ranked, but so is yours now at a record of 4-2. But I guess what did you take away from that Hayes game that you're looking to build upon with all this time off, with the winter break? Even though you didn't play Topeka High, you can use it to continue to grow your team's strengths and become a better team.
Yeah, I mean, Hayes is a very experienced team. They have almost their whole team back from last year, which was a very good team. They added a freshman girl who's been their leading scorer. We did a super job, I thought, defensively. Isabel Peabody guarded her most of the time and really did an outstanding job because she was scoring like 17 points a game or something, only scored like 7 against us. And that was a game we were right in it the whole way. We had some good little runs, kept in it till the very end, just the last couple of minutes when they took advantage of us inside and made some big plays. But the fact that we could be right there and have a chance to win was good. And then we had a chance over break to watch film and see how many little things that we could fix, that the girls could work on, really helped us a lot. But, they have a good team, so to play like that and show that we had every chance to beat them, we just got to get over the hump on those and win those games.
Coach, you got a fun team to watch. They're a lot of fun to broadcast their games. They're talented. I think they're going to be extremely competitive in the Centennial League this year, but still a long season to go. Coach, really appreciate your time, and we'll see you on Tuesday against Junction City.
All right. We enjoy you being with us, Mitch. Thank you.
Head coach Scott Mall, the girls basketball coach for Manhattan High Hoops. Really appreciate him joining us on Scoreboard Saturday this week. Mitch Fortner, really appreciate him sitting down with both coaches here on this Saturday morning. Coming up next, we'll be joined by Kaylie Ines, the girls basketball coach of Blue Valley Randolph. Her team off to a tremendous start at 5-1. We'll talk with Coach next on Scoreboard Saturday here on News Radio KMAN. Back here on Scoreboard Saturday, News Radio KMAN on this Saturday morning. AJ Shaw with you again. Our show, of course, always brought to you by the great folks at WTC Communications. WTC keeping you connected with the fastest fiber network, internet speeds. Get your home or business in the game online at WTCKS.com. That's WTCKS.com. Really pleased to have us be joined now by Kaylie Ines, who is the girls basketball coach at Blue Valley Randolph. Her team off to a very nice start at 5-1. They last played, not last night, but last Friday, January 3rd, they took on Onega. They had a game moved back against Hanover. I wanted to start off, Coach, early on in the season with this 5-1 start. What's kind of been the reason for your team's success?
It has been an exciting start to our season for sure, being 5-1. I think our success really comes with, we have three key players that have really stepped up defensively and offensively to lead us there. Defensively, I mean, we're agitators on defense, and I think that throws people off a little bit. We're pretty quick, we're pretty aggressive, and we're not giving up on defense, so we're getting our hands on the ball, deflecting, and getting a lot of turnovers. And then offensively, we're finding our rhythm with our shots and with our motion offense, and things are happening, and they're really good for us right now.
So would you say your team's biggest focus when it comes into games is your defense?
I would say so. I do. I encourage my girls a lot to be aggressive on defense and stay locked in on defense. I think that helps them with their confidence of getting stops and slowing down the game defensively, and that helps transition their confidence into offense.
So talk to me a little bit about the Onega game. It was your first game in 2 weeks. You get a 22-point victory. Talk about some of the things that stood out to you the most from that game.
Yeah, it was going into that game, my assistant and I were kind of talking about the scenarios that might happen. We were just coming off of a break. and it's our first league game, and so there's always some nerves when we enter league. But they shook the rust off pretty quick in the Onega game. Our defense, they really picked up, and I think for a little bit we got thrown off offensively, and it was hard to find our rhythm. But that game, we have a freshman, Briley Brockman, and she dropped 20. I want to say she dropped 22 points that game, and that was a really big catalyst for us to have her confidence out there and her leadership in the Onega game. And it was infectious. It led to other people stepping up and hitting shots, and it was a great game. In part, we were playing in front of our home crowd, which is always helpful, and so there was just confidence all around on the team. We got through our first quarter, shook the rust off, and then it was off to the races for us.
So would you say that your team this year, you mentioned Briley Brockman, who's a freshman, would you say your team is more of a veteran team or kind of a younger team?
So we are a younger team. We have currently 3 seniors playing, and then we're starting 2 freshmen, a sophomore, a junior, and a senior pretty much. But, after this year, we'll only have 1 senior next year, and so we have a lot of young girls. So we're a bit of a mix, but it's definitely more of our freshmen and sophomores right now.
Gotcha. So you have an opportunity to be with these girls for a few more years, and obviously they've kind of grown up with you. They kind of have understood the system when they were in middle school and elementary school, kind of going through the system, knowing they were going to get up to varsity at some point too. So you've had your experience with them, and you're obviously going to get a few more years with them as well.
Yes, the future for Blue Valley Lady Rams basketball is really exciting, and to have the leadership of our seniors right now to continue that movement, it's really exciting these next couple years for us.
Obviously, we've had a little bit of snow that's hit our area, unfortunately. We got hit here in Manhattan, and I'm sure you guys got hit out there in Randolph. How does the weather kind of affect your teams? I guess what my question is the consistency of being on the court more often, because obviously when the game gets postponed, you're off for a few more days. So how are you able to kind of keep your team's focus when you have to deal with situations where you're having a game or two get postponed in the middle of the season?
Yeah, so we got to practice on Thursday. That was the first time we got to practice this week, was on Thursday. And it was a pretty rough practice. And, I checked in with the girls afterwards of I know we had break and then we had all this snow stuff, but we have to understand, our season is just starting. So don't lose your hunger or your mentality to compete. And then they came in yesterday, Friday night, and they didn't miss a beat last night. And so it was really nice to see them kind of refocus. And so it's really just more of checking in with the girls and reminding them that they're off to a really fantastic start right now. And anything can happen this season for us if we put our minds and hearts to it. And so don't lose that focus and don't lose that hunger. And it really only takes one reminder, one check-in with them. And again, they're refocused. We're going to go hit the gym today to get ready because we have a big week next week coming up with games. So we're going to stay locked in. We're going to stay focused.
And then you have the Twin Valley League tournament, which is always fun. I remember many years ago I called that game when I was working at a different station. You have 2 road games next week. You got Clifton Clyde, who's always definitely a team to keep an eye on. They went in and beat a Frankfort team that is a defending state champion last night. Then you got Hanover on the road. That's a makeup game from this week. And then you got the Twin Valley League tournament. So you're going to be away from your own gym for 2 weeks. When it comes to travel, how do you get your girls mentally prepared to kind of go on the road and face teams in a different environment?
Especially on those roads, they're long trips sometimes. And so the girls are always kind of free to have their team bonding on the bus up until about 10, 15 minutes until we get to that school. And then in that 10, 15 minutes, I'm kind of giving them a warning and letting them know, it's now time to really shift our focus. We had our time, and now's the time to lock in. So kind of getting them mentally prepared on the bus and then in the locker room. The girls are really great. They like to listen to motivational speakers, and so we always give them about 10 minutes in the locker room to themselves so they can listen to a motivational speaker. They can talk amongst themselves for their game plans, and then my assistant and I, we come in and, we hype them up as much as we can. We give them the game plan, for the best, like to the best of our knowledge. And then again, we're hitting that court and we're coming out playing our game and our tempo. Our motto is to stay calm, cool, and collected and control the chaos. And, we do what we do.
I like that. Control the chaos. That's a good thing to follow for sure. You mentioned tempo is a big thing with your team. So I'm assuming with the shot clock being implemented in a lot of leagues this year across the state of Kansas, I'm assuming the shot clock doesn't really mean a whole lot to your team just because you're kind of a fast-moving offense?
Yeah, so we've been practicing this past week with the shot clock. We haven't actually experienced it in a game, but it made no difference into our practice. These girls are pretty quick, but it's always kind of controlling your quickness. Like, be quick, but also do it well. And so offensively, I don't think we're going to struggle come shot clock with Clifton Clyde on Tuesday. So we're pretty fast-paced team, and we're ready for it.
I want to go a little bit earlier back in the season with the Mission Valley tournament. What stood out to you from that tournament with your team?
I think that tournament was a pretty big confidence boost for our team. Again, our freshman, Briley, that was the first time she dropped 20 points. I can't remember against which team, but it was I think it was the second game we played, a light kind of just went off in her, and her confidence kind of sparked up. And I think, again, that was an infectious confidence to be able to have her be confident on the court. And then the encouragement also that she gave and received. So that was one of the big key factors, but also coming out strong of we faced an NEK in that tournament, and it was a tough game, and we came out on top. And I think that really sparked it in the girls of this season's really different from us because we just kind of went to war and we came out on top. Now we did fall to Mission Valley on the last night, and that was just it. It was just one of those games where no shot was going to fall for us, and we picked ourselves up from that and moved forward.
But even in that game, I mean, even though you fell, you held Mission Valley. It was a very good team to 38 points. You kept it in a very close game. So even with that loss, I'm sure that kind of stood out to your girls hey, even though we didn't win tonight, we're still a pretty good team. If we're able to go up against the host school in a tournament, a Mission Valley team that's pretty darn good, and hold them to 38 points and almost beat them.
Absolutely. That was, again, and I think that's a testament to the defense that we have of they stayed locked in. The shots weren't falling, but that didn't mean their defense fell. And that's right there. I told them, you keep your heads high because we took second place in that tournament. And it's been a long time since Blue Valley's had a start like this for the Lady Rams. And it's exciting. I told them all the time, it's going to be a magical season. If you stay locked in and you believe in yourself, we're going to shock people this season.
Oh, for sure. You mentioned Briley Brockman. You also, is there any other players that you wanted to kind of highlight that have stood out to you early in the season that's played a role in your team's success?
Absolutely. So, of course, Briley, she's averaging 15.7 points per game,
it's really
8.8 rebounds, and 4.7 steals right now. She is our top scorer. She has an older sister, Brynlyn Brockman, who's averaging 11 points per game, 9 rebounds, and 4 steals. And Brynlyn's also she's a force defensively and offensively. She's a junior, so she's one of our leaders. She's our court captain. She just has a really great attitude and a really great at kind of managing our team and regrouping it. The other one is Lydia Dumler. She's a sophomore, and she's our point guard, and it's really the heart and passion, Lydia. She's great for some shots or some quick points when we need them. She is one of our most aggressive defenders out there. She deflects the ball. She gets a lot of steals, and then her leadership and her positive attitude is infectious. She always tells me the next important shot is the next one, is what she says. That's kind of her mindset. She's like, I may airball or I may miss it, but that's okay because I'm going to go get the next one. And that attitude, it's hard to beat right there.
Oh, that's an incredible attitude for sure. I mean, it's especially someone who's a young kid that could get a little bit distracted at times if something doesn't go their way. That's a great attitude to have. Well, Coach, it's really great to talk with you this morning. Really happy to hear that the Rams are off to a great start, and hopefully that success continues and we can talk more down the road this season. Thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
All right. Coming up next, we'll be joined by Bryan Ebert, who was named the National Coach of the Year by the NFHS. his team, the defending state champs. We'll talk with Coach Ebert next on Scoreboard Saturday here on News Radio KMAN. Final segment of the program here on Scoreboard Saturday, News Radio KMAN. AJ Shaw with you here. Really appreciate Kaylie Ines joining us from Blue Valley Randolph High School, the girls basketball coach. We're now joined by another Twin Valley League girls basketball coach, Bryan Ebert, who it's been kind of a big week for Coach Ebert, being awarded the NFHS National Coach of the Year for 2023-24 for girls basketball. Coach, first off, congratulations on that award. Your team, the defending state champions. Just tell me a little bit of kind of what kind of went through your mind when you were notified that you were given that award.
Very surreal. Kind of you think in your mind, do I really deserve this? But then you step back and you think about your past and the many years of hard work, blood, sweat, and tears, all that, how many hours you've put in, game film, scouting, practice, games alone. You start to think, and you think, man, maybe actually all that work pays off. But yet again, there's a lot of other people I feel like probably are just as deserving of getting it. But I'm very honored, very prestigious thing. When you talk about something in your state where you're recognized, 300 and some schools in the state of Kansas, that's a big deal. And then they tell you, well, you're the sectional where it's like 6 or 7 states. You're the top coach in those states. Then that's even a bigger deal. But then when you talk about, the entire nation and 50 states, and then you think about how many schools have basketball in all those states, it's very humbling. Very great honor. I appreciate it. I thank the NFHS for listening to the story that we had last year. It was a pretty storybook ending as far as how we won. And, I think not just me, but the girls deserve some of that credit as well.
And it was definitely a storybook ending, and I know we talked a little bit after that game had happened. You go up against Little River at state. Frankfort girls basketball, they've always been a successful team, but they could never get over the hump. But getting that state title to beat Little River, who was a top seed, an unbeaten team, that was a really special story, and I know a great moment for your program for sure.
Absolutely. Going into that, we were the 6th seed, and we had to beat the 3, the 2, and the 1. And Little River was undefeated, and they'd been 2-time state champions in volleyball back-to-back, and they hadn't been beaten. Everybody just kind of penciled them in and said, well, they're going to win basketball this year too. And I think that kind of took our girls took it to heart, not allowing that. The first half, they came out and they ended up with like a 6-point lead going into halftime, and we just did a few things different. The second half, made a few adjustments, and we were able to get to the basket. And we started that second half with 11-0 run. And, you could just see that they were in shock that somebody's actually going against them and trying to play and trying to beat them. And I think they just kind of tightened up, and our girls just kept going with it. And, and in the end, we hit some shots. Like my daughter hit a big 3, and Hattie Gross went to the line and hit 2 free throws. So, it was a very storybook ending, one that I was glad to be on, that ride. So it was very special, and we are very glad to have that, obviously the first in our state or in our school history. So it's very special, and I still, contact those girls and thank them and how I appreciate how great a season it was.
So looking now at this season, so far 4-4 to start the year. Talk about some of the things that have kind of stood out to you early in the season, and highlight some of the players that have been kind of a part of your team's success early in the year.
Yeah, well, it's been a lot different season than last year. There's no doubt. We've had several injuries. We have some girls out there playing sick. We had a couple girls maybe probably shouldn't be playing because they're so sick. We got one that I know been diagnosed with walking pneumonia, and she just fights through it. We have a girl that tore her ACL before Christmas. My daughter has been fighting an ankle injury since volleyball, so she just came back last night and was able to play some. So, it's been a whirlwind. Somebody said the other day, you sold your soul last year, and now you're paying for it. And, I don't feel like that. I don't think that that's the way it is. It's just one of those seasons where you're just having some, maybe some rough luck. But our girls are fighting through it. I'm been very pleased with junior Ashlyn Dallinghouse. She really stepped up. Lorelai Loizo, those two are juniors. And Breeley, my daughter, is only senior. So we've really been playing without a lot of leadership out there. Some girls that have been thrown in there and have to step up and be leaders that maybe are not ready for that, or definitely not used to that. So I feel like they're doing a good job. And then we have a good sophomore. Tessa Parsimer has been really dynamic for us, able to score and just athletic and can defend. She did a great job last night against Debbie Wirtz, who's one of the top players in our class and definitely in our league. She averages about 26 a game, and we held her down to 8 points. So, last night was rough. We held her to 8, but everybody on their team otherwise was able to hit some shots, and that's kind of how it's went. But in reality, we do really well the first 3 quarters, and since we don't have real depth, we don't have a deep bench, we kind of lose, in the fourth quarter because we're fatigued and tired, and people speed us up. So if we can get through that and find a way, we definitely have some success the rest of the season.
Yeah, and again, it's a very long season ahead. Anything can change, and you mentioned injuries. You obviously can't anticipate for that. It's just how you're able to kind of work around it. But, when you lose a leader like your daughter or you lose some players to illness, that obviously plays a role in that. You've also had, and we've had this issue, I know, across the state, something called snow, obviously. We've had that big, crazy snowstorm. So you've had a few games that have had to been moved around, too, so that obviously probably affected your team a little bit, you think?
Oh, yeah. I mean, when you don't get in that routine that you're used to, having practice, game, practice, game, they lose a little bit of focus. But as a coach, it's your job to try to keep them as focused as possible. Maybe change a little thing up, have practice later or cut practice short or, just something to give them a little bit of energy and just focus on something. We watch some film, so we'll sit down and watch film for 10, 15 minutes as a team and just talk about things, whether it's our film or the opponent's film. So there's ways to keep them focused and try to, keep them energized, even though they're maybe not in school or, we don't have practice, whatever it is. But, we got those games rescheduled and, we're hitting the ground running now.
Yeah, you'll be making up one of those games on Thursday against Valley Heights. It'll be your next game, your game after Donovan West, who's going to be coming in. And they're off to a pretty solid start in the year. And then you got the TVL tournament. I only have a few minutes left here, Coach, before we have to wrap up. But just wanted to quickly ask, how is Emily doing? I know she had a serious injury when she came back to play K-State. How's she doing so far this year?
She's recovering. It's been a long process. When you tear your patella tendon, they say almost worse than an ACL or as is worse. So, it's tough. But she has a long career, one that I felt was pretty successful. And, she's now living there in Manhattan. And, Ty's trying to get onto a team for the NFL to punt with. And they're married and, living life. So she's doing well. I think she misses basketball. She helps me and watches some film every now and then. But I think she's ready to get on to the next stage of her life. And, injuries happen, like you said, earlier. You just have to pick it up and go. You gotta keep living. And that's what they're doing right now. They're just picking it up and go with it. So.
Well, I know K-State fans loved Emily, and when that injury happened last season when Oklahoma State came to town, a lot of fans online were really devastated to see that. So I'm glad that she's recovering, and Ty, we're hoping Ty gets a job in the league because he definitely deserves it, and he'll always be a legend at K-State. Coach, really appreciate your time this morning. Good luck to your team the rest of the way, and hopefully we can talk more down the road. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you calling.
Yeah, of course. We'll hopefully talk more down the road. That's going to do it for another edition of Scoreboard Saturday here on News Radio KMAN. Really appreciate Coach Ebert and Kaylie Ines, as well as Scott Mall and Benji George sitting down with Mitch Fortner. The Kim Commando Show follows us on this Saturday morning. Of course, K-State men's basketball tonight, 4 o'clock pregame with a 5 o'clock tip. Girls coverage over on our sister station, Sunny 102.5, with pregame at 4:30 and tip at 5 o'clock. Have a great weekend, and of course, stay safe and stay warm, and go Cats.